Craig and Tim clips.
Another thing I sent you this week was the difference between Canadian and American food. Do you remember that?
Yep.
I'm going to show it a little bit here.
We're going to do a blindfolded taste test. Let's open the Canadian one first. Okay, yeah, that looks like what was in the video. Muted colors, not too vibrant. See the American one. Oh my God. Whoa! Holy hell, look at that. That's crazy. This looks like candy, and this looks like oatmeal. Of course kids want this. Both made by Kellogg. What is making that color difference? Well, the American one uses food coloring, like red 40, yellow 5, blue 1, yellow 6. And the Canadian one uses fruit juice for coloring. Watermelon juice, blueberry juice, Guido juice. Other than visual, does it cause a taste difference? We're gonna find out.
Here we go. Let's go with this one first. That's good. That's really good. Let's see this one here. No, not nearly as strong of a Fruit Loops flavor. Not at all. Let's go back. Oh, yeah, that hits you. That's it. I mean, this has to be the American one, right? Because visually, it would taste this way. Here we go. The moment of truth. This one is the better Fruit Loops. But which country is it from? What? No way. It's the Canadian one. What?
So this guy is funny. I watched him a lot pre-pandemic. Him and his buddy used to go because he worked in Buffalo.
Yep.
So he lived in Ontario, like Niagara area, and he would drive to Buffalo every day for work, and then he would come home. So he'd cross the border every day.
Yep.
And him and his buddy would do this thing where they tried American food and they tried Canadian food.
Yep.
They would do American Tim Hortons and Canadian Tim Hortons, American McDonald's, Canadian McDonald's, and all that kind of stuff, right? This video that we just showed was him trying the Fruit Loops and trying to figure out which one tastes better.
Or visibly how it looks too.
No, he said that based on the visibility,
Yep.
the one should taste better.
Right.
The one that's brighter and more fluorescent should taste better. And he tried them both.
Yep.
And as you saw in the video, the one that tasted better was the Canadian one.
Right.
And the Canadian one looks duller than the American one because the Canadian one is colored with natural food coloring.
Right.
Whereas the American one is colored with dyes.
Right.
Red dye number 10.
Mambo number 5. Yeah.
It's like blue dye number whatever. Purple dye number whatever. So it's all purple and red and blue and green dyes.
Yep.
And dyes, as people have been, sharing on the internet a little bit. You know how the internet is a wealth of knowledge.
I think it's called the interwebs. I'll look it up, but it's called, believe interwebs.
I believe you might be correct.
Yep.
The Google interwebs.
Google. Yep.
Dyes are really bad for you.
Right.
So they're not allowed in Canada.
Right.
It's strange, though, that the Canadian food tastes better.
Well, typically there's more natural ingredients, it will taste better.
So why wouldn't American food not put dyes in it? What do you think the reasoning is for putting the dyes in it as opposed to just dyeing it with natural food coloring?
Cost, I would assume.
You think it's
cheaper.
cost?
It has to be.
So if it's cost, why does the American cereal cost just as much as the Canadian cereal?
Is it equal? Exactly. I think it's cheaper in the US.
Yeah, but their dollar is better.
So if I'm feeding my family crap anyway, what does it matter if it's crap with natural dyes, with dyes versus?
So apparently this red dye number whatever is really bad for you. Yeah. Like it's carcinogen bad for you.
Now it's not just Fruit Loops that this whole discussion lends itself to. If
like Twizzlers.
So why does one, and I said this before, but you have one sriracha have 7 grams of sugar per teaspoon and one has less than 1.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's cost. It's cheaper to pack it full of glucose.
Yeah. You can look at the back of like a Kit Kat bar in Canada versus the US. Yeah. The ingredient list in the US is so much more than the Canadian one.
Yeah.
Like exactly the same foods.
Yeah.
And get even better is that you go, I think, to like a place like Australia and they have even better food regulations than Canada. Right? So the food regulations, like, what is the reason? Is it cost?
I mean, it's consumerism, it's cost. This goes into a
Do you think it
much
goes
bigger
down to
debate.
like visuals?
I really think Americans, I find, I mean, if you are in the lower end of the economic spectrum in general, you
Yeah.
are going to purchase the cheapest food because that's the amount of money you have.
Mhm.
And typically the cheapest foods are the ones that are packed with some of the things that we shouldn't eat,
Okay.
right? And that lends itself to Americans as consumers buying things because they're less expensive and being ignorant about, the health factors of it, right? Which leads to things like obesity. I saw someone else also posted some of the stats comparing Americans to Canadians to Europeans, and I mean, we can't. There's to a certain extent, Canadians aren't devoid of this because we're always attached to the U.S. in some way. So if there's a trend in Canada or the U.S., it tends to be in Canada, but maybe not to the same degree.
Yeah.
But all these little things like packing sauces with sugar or having dyes in the food, right, drops the price down and it adds to an unhealthy country or generation, right?
Yeah.
And when you went, by the way, when you were a kid and 35 years ago,
Yeah.
what cereals did you have? And so what
Frosted Flakes.
okay.
The shredded wheat.
Yeah.
Cheerios.
Did you have Fruit Loops?
Not really. My
So
parents didn't feed me that.
So your cereals typically were they weren't bright, right? That you had.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so do you think that things have changed, that it's going more so in that direction every year?
So I'm just looking it up as you're talking to me and stuff like that. Apparently, the reason why that they're putting food dyes in and artificial coloring in is to help make them look more appealing.
Right.
And help the food look more attractive.
Shiny ball? It's just shiny ball syndrome?
And it's manipulating the masses,
right,
so that they'll buy that
food.
food.
It's literally shiny ball syndrome.
Yeah. Well, think about a car, right? Like, what looks better to you? A nice, clean, shiny car?
So they're banking on, okay, if you're buying Fruit Loops to begin with, you're not looking for healthy food. You're looking, and so that I suppose for the consumer, like, let's make it as bright as possible.
And making it look like candy.
Yeah.
So even if you think about cough syrup and what they're doing, it's really like it's to make it taste better,
right?
That type of thing. So this comes from I can't read anything because of the internet being so weird.
And that's our segment.
I honestly,
thanks for being with us, everybody.
I can access this article for free if I put in my email address. So, don't you hate paywalls though?
Oh, I hope maybe I should learn how to do AI.
This is like paywalls are the worst. Anyway, so this comes from. I don't have a preference. Select later. Done.
Fascinating.
I just want to read this.
They got
RFK Jr. claims that Canadian Fruit Loops have 3 ingredients and they have 17.
So backtrack.
Yeah.
RFK Jr. is Robert Kennedy.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Jr.
Yeah.
Who is the grandson of JFK, right? Correct?
Grandson or nephew?
Nephew.
Like I believe he's the nephew.
So, and he was just appointed. Was he appointed by Trump? He can't appoint yet, but he's expected to become the the governor general. Is or
no? He's going to be something to do with the food.
Yeah, sorry.
He's going to be like a food critic of some sort. He vows to make America healthy again.
Right.
And the issue with this is he came out during the pandemic.
Yeah.
To talk about the V word and how he didn't agree with them.
Right.
So what's happening in the States is because he questioned the safety of the V,
yeah,
he can now he's not being taken as seriously
He's
about these
seen as
other
a
things.
conspiracy theorist.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have that position because serious people who have serious medical opinions and
He also talks about the fluoride in the water.
Right. Yeah.
And the funny thing is, on The View,
Yeah.
pretty sure it was The View, they're talking about how fluoride in the water is good for you because it helps people that have lower income clean their teeth.
Right.
And I'm thinking to myself,
Doesn't
but
toothpaste
it's
do that?
also poisoning you.
Yeah. Also, I think toothpaste does that.
No, lower income families, like families that don't buy
Can't afford toothpaste?
well, they just don't do it.
Oh.
Right? It's supposed to be helping them. But anyway, why do Fruit Loops in this country have 18 or 19 ingredients when Canada only has 2 or 3?
Right.
He said in an interview. Kennedy is known for his debunked medical claims, was wrong about the numbers of ingredients in Canadian American Fruit Loops, which are similar, 17 and 16 respectively. The biggest difference is the dyes, which in the American version is known as red 40, yellow 5, yellow 6, and blue 1. Canadian authorities limit the use of those dyes. After this article was published, Stephanie Spear, a spokeswoman for Kennedy, said he was referring in his MSNBC interview to the differences in food dyes in the American Canadian versions of cereals. We can all unify behind the goal of making American food healthiest and most nutritious in the world, Spear said in a statement. So essentially what's happening is when he speaks, he's trying to get a point across without having the facts.
Right.
So,
Which some argue Trump does, depending on your opinion of Trump.
yes, exactly.
And he's his right-hand health person now. Yeah.
Just in general, artificial food dyes, the FDA says that they are approved and that food dyes are safe. The totality of scientific evidence indicates that most children have no adverse effects when consuming foods containing color additives, but some evidence suggests that certain children may be sensitive to them. Many countries, including Europe, do not ban those artificial dyes, but require companies to alert customers to their presence by affixing labels to their products.
Just like cigarettes did with their labels as far as smoking.
And that seems to be enough to discourage their use in other countries. The Canadian version of Fruit Loops uses natural coloring, red from annatto. Do you know what an annatto is? Have you ever eaten an annatto?
Not since the incident.
Which comes from achiote seeds, yellow orange from turmeric.
Oh, I have a funny video.
Concentrated
I have
juice
to show you a turmeric video
of the huto tree, which grows in the tropics. So, ideally, I think what you're saying is correct. I think it's a lot to do with cost, and it has a lot to do with stimulating the brain to eat certain foods.
Do you think that government in North America, specifically, let's say in the last 20 years, cares about what people put into their body as far as healthy foods?
No.
And secondly, do you think they actively go out of their way to make people unaware that some things that you can have a healthy... This is what we were told in the pandemic.
Yeah.
Stay in your basement, get V, and
wear a mask.
And the
especially when you're with your spouse.
The argument was, our favorite
Dr. Tam.
Yeah, Dr. Tam. And the argument from people that are saying, listen, where is this discussion about making sure that you are healthy? You're eating healthy things, you're exercising. Because I think one of the things we learned during this pandemic was if you were at risk because you were not healthy, you're more at risk. Just like if you're at more risk to get a cold, if you don't eat healthy, you don't get your sleep, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But nobody was saying, make sure you get your vitamins, make sure you get your rest, make sure you get your exercise, all these things. And it's funny now that somebody, RFK Jr., is saying, and I'm not saying everything he says is true, because maybe he's got a lot of facts incorrect, which is what I would believe that.
I think that's the problem, is a lot of his facts become non-factual.
But if you have somebody that is, again, going against the narrative, which is, because we have big business that the government's more concerned with. We talked about this about milk products a number of months ago.
Yeah.
Whereas the government wants to push across products more than they want to keep you healthy. And
Yeah.
I think you made the point the government makes more money if you're sick. I think you
Yeah.
said something like that.
So the government will get the money from
Yeah.
the pharmaceutical sales. So Big Sugar gets the money from
Yeah.
selling sugar.
Yeah.
Then when people get sick, Big Pharma
Yeah.
gets the money.
Yeah.
And then once people die,
Yeah.
Big Government gets the votes.
Yeah.
Because the more people die, the more votes go Democrat.
I'm not going to necessarily have an opinion about that.
We've just been shut off. Now we can't promote this episode because I talked about the government.
But
Brr.
yeah, I love talking about this kind of stuff because, and it's
Yeah.
funny. Some people be like, "No, they're not. No, they're not."
But
You're a conspiracy. No, Greg, you are a conspiracy.
Have you seen the movie Thank You for Smoking?
Yes.
It's so good.
Yeah.
And it just shows that all of these lobbyist groups,
Yeah.
they give money to the government
Yeah.
to allow their products to be
A
sold.
kickback. Yeah.
And it's
I can't call it a kickback.
and what's that song? Anyway.
By
But
Big Sugar.
it allows them to sell their products without any kind of friction.
Yeah.
Which gives them more money, which
Yeah.
means the government will also get more money.
Yeah.
So, like, it's kind of an evil cycle.
So I really believe, and I'm not a conspiracy. You know this about talking about the Mandela effect all the time. I'm not a conspiracy theorist.
The Mandela effect is real, by the way.
Yeah. Well, sure. But I really do believe the government has no interest in having someone maintain a healthy lifestyle.
Speaking of anniversaries, it's our 1 year anniversary of the Mandela effect conversation.
Today, on the exact day of our 5 year, is also our 1 year. And I have a 1 year, I have a 2 year, I have a 5 year this week.
This is a 1 year anniversary, not a
Right.
5 year contract.
Okay.
But the big thing about that Mandela effect video is that when I go into our YouTube analytics,
Yeah.
the last 28 days, the Mandela effect video is still the most watched video just in the last 28 days. The last 28 days, it's got 1.6 thousand views.
We will have
Just for that one
we will
video.
have these awesome conversations that are like, health, and the government doesn't want this, and we're like, this was awesome, and then the only thing people want to talk about and comment is about how, I watched Sinbad in this.
Sinbad was in Shazam.
Yeah, I have it. Nobody ever supplies it for us, but I watched it with my grandma.
Sinbad.
I watched it 7 times. I have the DVD.
Yeah.
No one's produced it for us to see, but apparently it exists.
Just like Jingle All the Way.
So I guess
Sinbad's movie Shazam apparently has been seen by millions. The Mandela Effect video 1,600 views in the last 28 days. In the last 48 hours, it's got 49 views, and the video is a year old. And
why?
we are getting other views on other
put
videos.
$1,000 down on that video.
But
It would go viral.
can you imagine that video would go crazy? $1,000 to make that video go crazier. Let's see if we can make it go absolutely bananas.
Well, it'd be
We should
500.
test it.
How?
We'll just put $10 on it. See
Okay.
what happens.
I would put like 50. 25,
50?
25 each.
I don't have that much money.
Well, you were going to do 1,000.
No, you were.
No,
I said we should test it. I would love to do 1,000.
use $10. Yeah. $10.
If you want to sponsor our podcast,
Yeah.
we just want to test out whether or not our video will get over 1 million views.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks for watching the Greg and Tim Show clips. If you want, click the subscribe button right in the middle here, and then there's an episode in front of me and an episode in front of Tim. Click on them. Keep on watching. Keep on watching and share with your friends. Thanks for watching the clip.
Cheerio.
Cheerio.